It's January 15th. Time to plant the garden.
It's time to plant the garden. So here we go. This is the garden entrance. If anyone remembers what this is the explanation that Mary Ann told the professor that a successful garden is 1/3 water, 1/3 sunshine, and 1/3 prayer. Anyway, now you might think I'm absolutely crazy that it's time to plant the garden, but I'm very serious. So this is a garden. Everything in here is pretty dead and frozen. But we're not planting the garden down here. We're going to be planting the garden up there on top of my kitchen cabinets. And I'm going to be showing you how to do it and why we're doing it this way.
When preparing your seedling trays, there's a couple of choices you have. You can go out and buy a kit like this that has the bottom, it has the top squished in here, and it has individual slots for the seeds. But what we're going to be doing, we're going to be doing an entire tray worth of seedlings. It's going to be like broadcast. Now you can go ahead and use this, but you won't be using the individual cells. What I'm going to be using is, this is a tray from last year. So I went ahead and cleaned it out. Once it was clean, I sprayed it with bleach water. If you're going to recycle an older tray, and that's just fine, you want to be able to clean it up. Any dirt that might be inside the tray, dump outside. You don't want it going down the drain. Once it's been rinsed out, we want to get our bleach water and sanitize the tray to get rid of any critters, fungus, viruses, bacteria, anything that could harm our plants. Now, this is not an advertisement for Miracle Grow, but any really good quality all-purpose soil can be used. I just happen to like Miracle Grow. It usually goes on sale quite a bit, and it has all the nutrients and fertilizers already in it. Some soils that you can get, you got to be careful, because it may just be a lot of crushed up bark with very little soil, with very little nutrients. In this case, you pretty much get what you pay for. But Miracle Grow has a good name, and that's what I'm going to be using to fill my tray with. Now these trays are about 3 inches deep. I'm going to put in 2 inches worth of soil. Now one of the things you got to make sure, if you're going to be using a tray that's used, make sure you don't have any holes in it, because the last thing you want to do is when you water your seed, you won't want everything leaking out and it's causing a great big mess. Okay, so I did all the dirty work, of course. So at this point, I'm going to turn the actual seed planting over to my wife. Now, my wife is a certified master gardener. She took an extension course, did a whole lot of community work, and is one of the best gardeners I know of. So she's going to take care of all the planting.
Hi, I'm Phil's wife, Candy, and it's January, which means it's time to start the garden. And we're going to start with onions. We get these seed starting flats, and you know, you can find them at $8 to $12 just about anywhere, but the best place to buy them is Walmart. I bought these today for $4.87. So they're great. They are reusable. Bill mercifully cleaned an old one out with me, and we used bleach water to do that. We're going to fill the flats. There are 2 kinds of onions. Well, I guess there's 3 kinds of onions. There's long day onions, there's short day onions, and an intermediate day onion. I live in zone 5. It's determined by latitude, really. Pretty much zone 6 and below, you're going to need a long day onion. and above that you'll of course need a short day onion. The difference is the amount of daylight that an onion gets. They start to bulb at like 10 hours in the south and 14 hours in the north. So you're going to need your latitude or your zone to determine which kind of onion you're going to need, and it should tell you on the seed packet. There's also an intermediate onion that you can grow, or day neutral, that you can grow in zones 5 and 6 are really good. I've got some red onions to plant for that that I'm hoping to do well. Now most seed charts will tell you seed viability for an onion. Most charts will tell you that the viability of an onion seed is just a year. I usually have 1-year-old seeds because I buy some for next year, and I've never had a problem. So we're going to plant actually a couple packs of these in this one flat so that, well, we'll make sure we get some viable onions. I like the yellow globe, I like the sweet Spanish ones, I like the candy onions. These are all long day onions, which is where we need for our zone in 6A. So now I'm just going to spread them on top of the soil. You know, the seeds have got more expensive and they get fewer seeds in the packet these days, but I guess that's like everything else at the grocery store, huh? There's one packet, there's another one. See, these are early yellow globes. As I said, our onions will start to bulb at a certain day length, depending on what kind of onion it is. So we're planting our long day onions here. Now these seeds need to be covered with a 1/4 inch of soil. I really like the Miracle-Gro soil that has some fertilizer in it. When I was younger, I used to make my own soil with a third part of potting soil and a third of vermiculite and a third of perlite. Sometimes I would throw some, plant food fertilizer in there. But this is all mixed up. It can get pricey, but I'm too old to fool with that anymore. So I'm just going to cover this up with like 1/4 inch of soil. Pat it down good. I'm going to water it and put the top on. We have our little plastic top that goes on top, and hopefully we'll get some germination.
So this is part of my kitchen cabinets, and as you can see I have some lights above there, and they're up there for a particular reason. This is where we put the seed trays in the winter time to germinate and to grow. And you'll notice that there's this red kind of a coating on the top of my cabinets. This is a particular product I really like. It's called Red Guard. And Red Guard is a brush-on pliable membrane that is waterproof. It's often used when you tile a bathroom and maybe tile a shower enclosure. I place the Red Guard here basically to keep the leaks that occasionally happen when you water your trays from going into the cabinets itself and damaging the wood. Above the cabinets I have these lights. Now this one right here is actually an LED light. This one back here is the old-fashioned T5 fluorescent light. And these are actually held on with chains, which allows me to lower the lights right above the plant trays. The trays need to have light and they need to have just a little bit of heat. And when you're germinating your plant trays, you want these lights to be right above the plant trays as much as possible. Also, as you can see right here, I have a timer in the back. So the timer for my location comes on around 6 o'clock in the morning. It'll turn off at 11 o'clock at night so that they can get as much light during the daytime as possible.
I'm going to spray this with some water, a whole lot of water actually, but I'm going to spray it so that I don't disturb the seeds and end up with a bunch of seeds in the middle or at one end, so it'll be watered equally. all ready for the lights now. I'm going to do some red onions and some leeks, and if you're lucky enough to have shallots, you can plant those seeds now at all, also, and I hope that I can find some shallot seeds, because sometimes the seeds have been hard to find.
So my onion tray is right where it needs to be, and I went ahead and lowered the light so it's right on top of the lid itself. Now, if everything is done right, if the lid is placed properly and you've already watered the seeds, it's going to basically turn into a terrarium, and any condensation will come up to the top of the lid and drop back down onto the seeds.
For the red onions and leeks, we're going to use some of these smaller compartment containers, but these kind of got damaged and they're hard to find. So instead of using a bunch of these going into the trays, I'm going to go ahead and just make a separator. We're going to have leeks on one side, red onions on the other, and we're going to use this just as a separator that'll kind of tell us the difference between the two. So I'll have that in there. Need to come down just a little hair, and then we'll go ahead and fill this with dirt like we did the yellow onions. I just wanted to show you that this is one of our yellow onions that actually grew from seed, and it's amazing that that little teeny tiny thing grows up to be like this. And when it comes time to transplanting these little starts are only going to be about the size of a blade of grass, and this is what it turns into. It's totally amazing. Just to keep things accurate, so we have the leeks are going to be right here, and I'm going to have to cut this down just a bit. So the leeks are going to be on this side, red onions are going to be on this side. On the leeks, these are from pine tree seeds. These are going to be large American flag leeks. Leeks are good with soups. And as you can see, these are not very large at all. They're just so tiny. So we're just going to sprinkle these all over. Just always tap out, because you always end up getting some down in the corners of the package. The red onions are cabaret. These are even smaller. So I'm going to take these and spread them out. Each seed, if germinated, will become an onion. Then we want to add a 1/4 inch of soil on top. Tap them down with hair. And then we want to water them in. And please mark your bottles. Don't water your plants with bleach water, please. And then we put the top on top. Now, if for some reason there's gaps, like right here, this thing's not seated properly, so as the condensation comes up onto the plastic and comes back down, instead of going back into the soil, it's just going to drip out this edge right here. And so it might be necessary to put a piece of tape from the top to the bottom just to kind of hold that in place. It's also doing it on this side here, because we're not going to actually water this for quite a while. Once it germinates, then we'll take the tops off. But the tops will stay on until the plant, or until the seed actually germinates.
Okay, so we have our leeks, red onions, and yellow onions on top of the cabinet. The lids are sealed, and it's going to be about 14 days for germination. When they germinate, then the lids will come off.